Hey everyone, welcome back to American Snippets. My name's Dave Brown. I'm here with my co-host Barbara Allen. Today we're really excited to have a very special guest on. Her name is Dee Willard-Ruffin. She is a real estate investor in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Dee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on. You have a very interesting story in terms of where you are and where you are today and the journey that you took to get here. You started off as a letter carrier for the Postal Service, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
How long ago was that?
Gee, I started there in 1987, 86, a couple of years ago. And I started as a letter carrier and worked my way up the corporate ladder to becoming the first African-American female postmaster to hold a position in Bethesda, Maryland.
Wow, that's awesome.
That was pretty exciting for me.
Yeah. And you were, how long was that career?
So I got installed in 2005, and I held that position for 7 years. However, I was actually in the acting position there since 2003. So really approximately 9 years overall. But to actually have the position itself was about 7 years.
And then in 2009, you had a loss in your life.
I did. Very devastating one at that. I lost my husband, who was really my backbone and someone that we had been married for many, many years. And that was just a devastating blow for me. And so it really took the drive out of me, where I was so excited about being in a large post office, over 300 employees, handling over a $24 million budget, and all the accolades that came along with that, being the first African-American female. But all of that just went completely away after Paul passed away. And everything changed for me. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go to work, which I didn't work for 13 months. I just stayed at home and stayed in a hole and didn't go out of it. So I was really completely devastated by his loss. And one day my mom said, you got to do something. You got to go back to work. You got to keep living. And which is something I didn't feel like at the time I really wanted to do, to be honest with you. So the post office wasn't a motivation, and nothing else was really too much of a motivation for me, for at least those 13 months. And so I decided to go back. I went back and at the end of 2010, and it wasn't the same. I didn't like it as much. I hated getting up in the morning, going to work, and all. So I just was there, trying to do the best I can, existing, I guess, if you will. And after that, we went on a family vacation, and when I came back from that, there was a letter in my mailbox that said that if I didn't have the age, but I had the years of service. If you had 25 years of service at any age, you could take an early out and retire, take an early retirement from the Postal Service. And while that seemed like it would be music to my ears, it wasn't really, okay, in a way, because it was very scary.
Yeah.
Because at that point in time, I was 49 years old. And I, of course, annuity was not going to be very much, even though I had the years of service, I didn't have the age. So I needed to spend another 16 years there at that time in order to get what would be full retirement. So it was a very scary move for me because I had a decent income. It definitely took care of the bills and all, 6-figure income. And so I wasn't something that I could just jump and make a complete decision about. But in my heart wasn't there. So I really did want to go. It was just a matter of trying to figure out, could I make it? Could I not? Was I going to eat peanut butter and jelly every day? Or, would I be able to, what could I actually do? And that was really difficult for me, to be very honest. And I prayed about it and prayed about it. And finally, I didn't know. I just decided I was just going to step out on faith, because I only had 30 days to make this decision.
Wow.
So it wasn't like I had a long time that I could decide what to do. You had to make the decision. You had 30 days. And then within 30 days after you made the decision, you were out. So, in less than 2 months, you were gone, just like that. So finally, I just decided on the last day that I could send my paperwork in. I decided to express mail my paperwork in because it wouldn't have made it if I had just done it regular mail. So I sent my paperwork in and decided to retire, stepped out on faith, and that was what I did. In relation to that, my mom heard about Fortune Builders on a radio station here locally. And she told me, she said, Dee, you should go check that out. And I was like, oh, I've been to a couple of seminars and all. And I was like, oh, not really, huh? She said, yeah, go at least go listen and see what they have to say. And so I was like, okay, I will. And I decided, me and my good friend went to the seminar that they had, the 2-day. And I have to tell you that that was probably something that changed me completely at that moment. And it was something I felt on my insides that this probably could be for me. And again, I nervous and all again, but I said, I'm going to try it. I want to do it. And we stepped out on faith. I did. And got involved with Fortune Builders. And it's been a wonderful journey ever since.
Wow. Wow. I mean,
so backtracking a little bit, now we got a sort of an overall picture. Now we're going to kind of go step by step back through. Okay. So starting at the Postal Service, I know I have a sister-in-law who does that. I have a niece who just started just within the past several months. It is a very difficult, exhausting job. Exhausting. I mean, she's carrying literally half of her body weight, 9 miles a day, and she's just a little twig, right? So starting from that level and then maneuvering, working yourself all the way up through those ranks, and especially as a woman, and then as an African-American woman, which I can't speak to, but I imagine had several additional hurdles that maybe a lot of us aren't aware of. So what is it? What were some of those hurdles? Do you remember any, one or two or handful of moments where maybe you just, were overwhelmed, and then something that gave you the inspiration or the motivation to just push forward and what drove you through all those years to reach the top?
So, if what kind of actually happened was I did start out as a letter carrier. God bless your niece. I lost 35 pounds in the first 2 weeks of carrying mail. I did. And so I definitely understand it. It's not an easy job at all. However, I felt as though it was an opportunity, by getting my foot in the door to be able to move. It was never my desire to stay as a letter carrier. It was always my desire to get my foot in the door and try to move up. Well, in 1989, I had a very devastating accident. I got hit by a car while I was on the beach walking in the snow, and I was paralyzed. I could not walk.
Wow.
Yeah. I became paralyzed from that accident, and my mother, who's my sidekick, basically was at the hospital, and my rest of my family, when the doctor said I would never walk again. And she put everybody, my family just broke down and started crying, and so did I. And hearing those news, I was only like 24 years old. I only had 2 kids. And so walking around trying to raise 2 small children in a wheelchair, I knew would be extremely challenging. So I didn't know what to do, hearing that kind of news. But my mother put everybody out of the room, and she said to me, Dee Dee, you will walk again. And I didn't think she knew what she was talking about, but because I knew at that time what the doctors had said, and that was in my mind. But through my church, people started bringing me motivational books and reading the Bible, and my mom would come to the hospital every single day. They started me in a therapy where they put the band around my waist, and I had to walk on the parallel bars, or try to. So at first, I can't even tell you now, how difficult it was for me to just put one foot in front of the other, and how challenging. And we take that for granted, just putting one foot in front of the other. But I lived through that. And so knowing what it was to not to be able to do that at that point was critical for me. But my coach was there, which is my mom. And she said, you're doing it. She was like a drill sergeant, if you will. And that through my faith and my belief in God, one day I was able to put one foot in front of the other. And so I was out of work then for almost 2 years. And they wanted to retire me at that point and tell me to go on about my merry way. They wanted to give me a retirement at 24 years old. And because I couldn't carry mail anymore. And I went in the office and I said to the postmaster, my mother said, I wanted to be a clerk, just a clerk to sell stamps, right? And my mother said, why don't you go in and go into management? And I was like, oh, I'm not going in. They're not going to take me for the same reason. There was only one other Black female in management back then. This was in 1991. And she said, well, at least go in and say to the postmaster, you don't want to retire. You just want to, you want to do something else. So I said, okay. So I did that. I went into him and something said, just tell him. I said, I really came in here to tell you that I wanted to be a clerk, but I think I want to try my hand at management. Now, I didn't know what the guy was going to say because, like I said, there was only one other Black female in there. Not very many Blacks held management positions in the Postal Service, and this was in Arlington, Virginia. And he said, okay, Dee Dee, come in your dress tomorrow at Preston King Station. Start training. I was like, wow. So I ran out and came home. I was excited at that point. I was going to start into management. And I went into Preston King Station as an acting supervisor. There, they trained me. I then went from there to becoming a regular supervisor. After that, and there was one lady that was there. She was like my mentor, the other Black female. And she said, Dee, you could do it. You keep your head on straight. You don't use your skirt as a reason to get ahead. And real talk. And she said, and just keep your mind in it and you will go far. So I went from there, and I went from there to being from a supervisor to a manager. And from a manager, I went to Alexandria. From Alexandria, I went to Fairfax County, Herndon Station. And I became a person that could fix problem post offices. So I had a reputation that they put me in the toughest post office, and I could fix those tough post offices, ones that weren't doing very well or ones that weren't, performing very well. So I had a pretty tough management style along with it. And I had to, because I had to perform as an African American in order to be able to show that I could hold the job. So through that, like I said, I developed that reputation. Went from there, and the postmaster from Herndon asked me to come to Bethesda because she liked me. She liked my style, and I came there as a manager. And I wanted to be a postmaster of a large city. I didn't want to be a postmaster of a small one. And she said to me, I told her I wanted to be a postmaster one day. And she said, okay. Nobody believed it. And they even told me, you wanted to know about the challenges. They said I would never get that job. I just wasn't the right color.
What? They actually said that to you?
No, not exactly. But that was the undertone.
Implication. Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. And so I said, okay. And actually, when I went to be the acting, they didn't ask me first to be the acting postmaster when my postmaster left. They asked another gentleman who turned it down because the office was a difficult office to run, even in Bethesda, as affluent as it was. And so he turned it down, and then they asked me to become the acting postmaster. And I stayed in that position for 2 years. And when I applied for the job, there was 5 other people who applied, and they still told me I wouldn't get it. because it was very political.
Yeah.
That's where it's an affluent area. That's where all the congressional leaders are.
Yep.
You have to interact with the congressional leaders as well because of the affluency of the of that county. And so the demands were there, and that was just that it wasn't that it wasn't that I couldn't do the job. It was more so that the color barriers were there, the racial barriers were there, but as I put my best foot forward, and I slam dunked the interview. And so, at the end of the day, my motto was that I'm going to make you make a decision, regardless. You're going to have to make a decision. It's not going to be, I'm going to just give it up and I'm going to give it to you. You're going to have to make a decision. And thank God he had no other choice. Or I guess he did have a choice, but he made the right decision in choosing me.
Wow. So Dee, you went from a horrific accident to almost not being able to walk again.
Yeah.
To picking yourself back up, going back to the post office, getting the postmaster job, all while facing color barriers and maybe some sexism along the way, possibly.
You know it.
And I mean, and then you had to deal with the death of your husband. So all these things, one after another, and each time you're dusting yourself off, standing up, and still moving forward. I mean, amazing. You're an incredible woman.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
An excellent role model for your kids.
Wow.
I struggled with a lot of things in my life, but, up until the time where my husband was killed, I hadn't experienced anything at all on the level of what you'd already been through, when you faced that situation. My kids were 4 little boys. They were 6, 5, 3, and 1 when my husband died. I was 32 and it was very sudden, in Iraq. And so when I hear your story about how, and we haven't even gotten into detail on that part, and I'm already like, man, this woman was already badass. I mean, if there's anybody, you had already instilled in yourself the tools that you would need to find your way through this devastating loss, where I had done the exact opposite and sort of cultivated a mindset that I could do anything as long as my husband was there, right? So I hadn't accomplished anything significant on my own other than knocking out 4 kids in 5 years, That was my greatest achievement, I don't know. I'm curious now and moving forward to see how those lessons that you learned, I mean, even that accident that you got into, which was a devastating loss, in hindsight, pushed you onto a path to jump ahead, out of the letter carrier. But you can't see that when you're in it. When you're in it, you just see, why me? Why this? I can't do this. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then when you look back and you realize what those forces were, that sometimes without these terrible things happening, who knows what path you would have wound up taking, right? So
we 100% agree with you. 100%.
I follow someone who's an endurance athlete, an inspirational speaker, influencer on the internet and stuff. And he talks about how our life experiences, no matter how bad or dark they are, it calluses our mind, and it prepares us for other things that we have to deal with moving forward in life, and it enables us to move forward no matter how bad things are, to pick ourselves up and just keep striving for excellence and growth and taking it to another level. So I think, you're a product of your experiences, even though there were bad experiences and hard experiences, as Barb's point, that, they carried you through to where you are today. And it's an incredible mindset that you need to have, I think, to succeed in life and in business. And I think it really attributed to where you are today in terms of your next career path and how you attack that, just like you attacked everything else in your life.
I 100% agree with you. Not knowing that, as Barb said at the time, of course, and laying in that bed and not being paralyzed certainly was devastating for me. But what I got
Unimaginable for the
from
rest
that,
of us.
yeah. But I did have a strong support system, which is, I believe, you need to have. That helps, or it takes you, in a lot of times, to the level you need to be at. I think that I needed to have that strong, support system there that believed outside of what the doctors believed, that told me to see past what the doctors were saying and believe, in a higher being, and start to visualize it. To this day, I'm into visualization. I'm into affirmations. I'm into seeing things the way I want to see them, regardless of the way the circumstances are in front of my face at that time. So, leaning to what you're saying about your mentor as well, I agree with that 100%. So, regardless of, I've now trained my mind to, regardless of my situation and regardless of my circumstance, I see past that to where I expect it to be and where I intend it to be.
Right. Yeah, it's your belief system. I mean, you've proven to yourself in the past that you can get beyond, those things that you've experienced. And if you can see it, right? I mean, you believe it enough, those things will come to fruition. They'll happen.
Exactly. I do believe that.
Yeah.
I do believe that. Yes.
Yep. And God bless your mother for telling you, don't listen to these people. You're going to, because it is extraordinary, the impact that the belief and values and projections of other people can really play on our response to situations and stress, whether we stay in a bad situation and project ourselves down, or whether we move through it and claw our way up, to whatever extent we can.
No question.
And so, hats off to your mom for doing that. It's hard as a mom to see your children struggle and suffer and be helpless to do anything about it, and to be able to look past that and find.
She really was the backbone there, and because of that, Barb, I feel very strong, Barb and Dave, very strong on my circle of influence. I talk to people now as we speak about how important your circle of influence is.
Yes.
And it's because of what I've gone through and what I've dealt with, how I was able to overcome a lot of these things just because of my circle of influence.
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
Super important. Man, you have like 12 different episodes in you. We're just going to call you every month and do this. So moving forward now, upon the death of your husband and going, withdrawing from work and withdrawing from all that. And I know I don't want to go too deep into it, because I understand it's difficult to talk about, right? And I'm sorry to do that. But the greater picture is that when I lost my husband, and it was very, very traumatic story. He was in Iraq and he was killed by a fellow soldier, and there was a murder trial, and I had all these small children, and it was just horrific. And I was a very immature 32 years old, very immature, and very naive. So everything was just a crash course. And I specifically remember, the one dark moment that I'm sitting in bed and I'm holding that bottle of pills and I'm crying and I'm listening to my kids out there and I'm thinking they're better off without me anyway, and I literally had that handful filled, and then moving through that, but then saying, well, I sitting there in the evenings and saying, I'm just going to will myself to die, and for spending all of my energy into that, because the pain was too extraordinary for me, and the hopeless and despair. And I didn't have any confidence that I could come through and be the leader my children needed, or that I would even want to. I was just completely disinterested in all that. So I completely can relate to the struggles that you face when something so enormous happens, especially someone like myself who had not necessarily ever tapped into those skills that I would need, the strengths that I would need to come through that. I had in other ways, work ethic and all this, but I had never really been challenged to that extent where I had to dig deep and discover how bad did I want this? How bad was I going to fight for this? So this was my first true test, and it was a wallop of a test, So,
wow. Yeah.
So that I'm going to say only in quotes, because 13 months is an eternity, and but dude, it took me like 9 years to fully, get back and stop making these catastrophic decisions and allowing other people to manipulate me and all that. So you in 13 months managed to go through all that, and not like it's resolved and over, but you're still, every day you have to get up and make that choice. But you got to that place where you said, I'm going to start today. And so you made the decision to start in that time period, that process that you need to start to get to where you are today and where you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years from now. But if you hadn't started that day, it would be a completely different story. What was one of the first things you did when you had that conversation with your mother? One of the first things you did then was go to that seminar?
Yes. She encouraged me to go because she had heard it on the radio, and she encouraged me to go to it. And so I did with my best friend. We went to it. So that was pretty much that, that guidance there. I had gone to another seminar as well. And I joined the other seminar actually because I liked what they were saying. I always liked real estate. And I had, just played around with it a little bit, nothing to the extent of what I'm doing now. But I kind of liked it. So I just wanted to hear. But then after going to Fortune Builders, in all honesty, that was something that got inside of me. It wasn't on my flesh. It was on the inside of me. And and I just believed in that. And I thought that from that point on, that could be something that I could be, it could possibly change my life for the better.
Yeah. And it has, right? I mean, absolutely
It has.
has.
It definitely has.
So the seminar that you went to is for teaching people how to invest in real estate, how to fix and flip, rehab houses. That is, my space too. We've spoken before that I do that as well full time. That's my career. I'm also a Fortune Builder student, right? I was involved in that about 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
And now I'm with another real estate investing education company. So I know Fortune Builders is one of the top education companies in the country for real estate. Inc. magazine, top ranked, and so on and so forth. And I've coached over 100 students over the last 3 years in wholesaling and real estate investing. And I know firsthand that the biggest tool that you need for success, like this business is all about mindset. 80% of it is mindset, having the right mindset. And, everything that we've just discussed up to this point, you've built that mindset to attack this business and succeed at it. You already mentioned, when you were in your postal job that you were a problem solver, right? You solved the problems of the postal service, in the area that you were working. And real estate is no different, especially when we're working with, direct with sellers. We're ultimately solving a problem. A dilapidated house or a building is a problem, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And you're bringing these properties back to their glory, and at the same time giving back to your community by bringing these properties back up to the condition that they should be in, and bringing those communities along with it. So tell us a little bit about that and your current business and what you're doing and how many properties you're doing a year.
Wow. So DC is a large metropolitan area. So I don't want you to look at the quantity. I want you to look at the quality.
Sure.
Of what it is.
I saw some of the work that you do online in some of the videos, and I mean, your properties are absolutely breathtakingly beautiful.
Thank you. So we really look forward to getting out. Like you, we've been trained to go out and get the distressed properties and all. But we primarily are in the Washington, D.C. area. We do a couple in Maryland, and not really. We have one that we're doing in Virginia, but primarily our focus is Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. has a very long permitting system because what we do is we go in and now our business model is to gut out the houses completely and then rebuild them the way that we want it, and the way that we see them to be, not nothing like the way that they are. So that's our whole business model, and so we do about in between 4 to 5 a year. Those properties, each of them take anywhere from 9 to 12 months, to do. Um, and then we've incorporated now our rental portfolio. So we're buying in and holding on to rental portfolio to rental properties as well. We've expanded in that area, and now we have a property manager managing 6 of our rental units. I've done over $33 million in transactions. I've been involved with Fortune Builders for the last 5.5 years. And so since that time, we've done like I said, over $33 million in transactions and 52 properties in that time span. So, and that's all inclusive of, we did a little bit of wholesaling, not very much, but a little bit of wholesaling. But we also expanded out to Atlanta, Georgia. We have an expansion team in New Jersey, and we also have rental property, and we've also purchased a home that we're going to be renovating down in Virginia. So now we have all of those areas that are around us now, and that's where our main focus is. And I'll be coaching students as well, not Fortune Builder students, my own, because I just launched out a mentorship program. And we're also doing negotiations in Jamaica, so that we're looking. Yeah. We're looking at getting some land there and building a resort.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Do you have what's the Jamaican connection?
Amazing. So we talk about mindset. We talk about how we think, our thought processes, and believe it or not, Dave and Barb, because I guess I've established a good credibility, thank God, as well as people now see the integrity that I've so much tried to maintain and have and keep and know, make sure that I tell my folks how important that is. So we don't take any shortcuts or anything like that. As a result of that, more people know me than I know of them. Okay. So what happens is that I get calls and messages all the time from people who either have deals or want me to want me to buy something, buy their property or whatever. In this particular situation with Jamaica, I was getting a house in Capitol Hill. All right. I was doing it myself. That's a very prominent area of Washington, D.C. Okay. I mean, very prominent. That's right there near this Capitol Hill. So it's near the White House and all of that kind of stuff, just to give you an overview of it. So to get a property over in Capitol Hill is huge. Okay. So I got one, and we did it. We was doing it. And then 3 doors down from that became another one. All right. Now I'm going somewhere with this story. It'll take me 1 minute. I got the other property. I didn't get it at first because somebody else was getting it. But I went over and established myself with them, and the real estate agent liked me. And as a result, the person who was getting that property, the deal fell through for them. So she called me up and said, "Hey,
Nice.
Do you still want this property 3 doors down? The deal fell through." And so I said yes, and I wanted it for the price that I wanted it for. Okay, so we agreed on that. But what I did was I gave the person who the deal fell through on, I gave him $10,000. Okay, yeah, I did, and because I knew he was hurt. I knew he was hurt over not getting the property. I knew he really wanted it, and a lender just really kind of let him down and just fell out on him. So I gave him $10,000, and we went and hard on. We finished the project and completed it, and he called me. He had the connection in Jamaica, and he called me and said, "Hey, I got this connection in Jamaica. I'd like to go. We want to put together a team and go there and build build a resort, buy the land and build a resort. Would you like to join me in doing it?"
Crazy. That is awesome.
That's a wonderful example of the law of reciprocity, right? I mean, you help someone out and it came back tenfold to you.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. So,
Dee, I want to ask you, so you kind of started over when you were 49 years old, right? You were kind of left with a choice, like what's next? So what would you say to someone who's in that age bracket, you know, they're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, or even their 60s or 70s, and they think that they're too old to start a new path or to go, you know, chase after a new career or go after their dreams? What would you say to someone like that?
Wow. First of all, I would tell them to act like me because, you know, even though I'm 55, I think I'm 35. Okay. So my heart says 35 and my mind says 35 and my body says 35 because I go to the gym, I work out, you know, I still can dance, I still can do all the things a 35-year-old can do, right?
Yeah.
So I would tell them that, don't think of their age as being something, you know, old and ancient, because I just don't do that. I think I'm as young as the rest of them out there. And I act that part, okay, in a responsible way. Okay. However, I would tell them age is just a number. We move forward. And it doesn't matter. You can do what you put your mind to be able to do. And regardless of how old you are.
Yeah, fully agree.
Can you tell us a little bit? You said you started a mentorship program. Do you want to talk for a minute about that and what that is?
Yeah, but it launches this Thursday. So I'm really brand new in it. Okay.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
I have 5 students. And one in Florida, Cocoa Beach, Florida, actually. So basically, I feel there's a need here to show people really how to go out and find the deals correctly, not to take the shortcuts, and to really be good wholesalers. I don't know about where you all are, but where I am, the people here just give you the worst number. I mean, I can tell you, I've only bought from one wholesale person since I've been doing this. And that person wasn't even from here. They were from down in Virginia, 4 hours away from here. And they just happened to be a Fortune Builder student. It's because the numbers are not accurate and the numbers are very fictitious.
Sure.
And numbers are just not there. And I think it's because they lack the knowledge and the know-how and the ability to get out here and do it the right way so they could get the property under contract and have a little bit of room to be able to wholesale it and have people buying their buying their deals from them. So that was what kind of prompted me to do that, to be able to share our secrets, if you will, and how we're able to negotiate and get properties at the numbers that we're able to get them at, which is, for the most part, about 50% of the ARV.
So, Dee, let me stop you there for a minute, because there's probably a lot of people listening to this who don't know they don't even know what wholesaling is, right? They understand real estate investing. They've seen the TV shows where people, you know, fix up houses and resell them for profit. So just quickly, so our audience knows, you know, what is wholesaling?
So wholesaling is when you get a property under contract and you sell it to a rehabber or a person that's going to take that property or wants to take that property from you, buy it from you, and rehab it themselves. A wholesaler really doesn't have risk, involved. They basically just build buyers, get a buyer, and the buyer is the rehab, like probably you and I, that will take the property and take all the risk, but they will do the renovation for the property, not the wholesaler.
Right.
And the wholesaler gets paid a fee for doing that.
Right. So just another strategy that a real estate investor can use to make some quick cash and play middleman in a property.
Absolutely.
So, Dee, we're gonna wrap this up a little bit with our little lightning
surprise questions.
Yeah, our surprise questions, our lightning round. Okay.
They're not so surprised.
They're not so surprised. So, first off, At American Snippets, we're big believers of the American dream, right? That anyone can kind of create any life that they choose. They can design a life that they want to live. So what does the American dream, mean to you in terms of the opportunities that are here in this country?
The American dream means to me that I can achieve what I want to be able to achieve. I can get what I want to be able to get, and I can live a life that I desire to live, not what somebody else desires for me to live.
Well said. Well said.
Let's change the next one. Normally we ask, what would you, if you could reach back in time to your 22-year-old self and give you a piece of advice, what would you say? But let's change that to 24-year-old now, because that's when you had that accident. So looking back from now, picturing yourself 24 years old in that hospital bed, if you could have had a word of advice from you right now, what would that be?
Continue to follow your dream. Dee, don't let this small setback hinder you from following your dream, and only believe that a setback is the setup to the comeback.
Oof.
Good one.
We might have to end on that
one. We'll just switch it up a little bit. Okay, one more. If there is one person in the world that you could call up today and meet and spend a few hours with, who would that be? Someone you haven't met yet that you would really love to meet.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh.
All right.
Awesome.
Something tells me she would take your call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like she would. I think she would take your call.
Two very powerful, humble, and smart-driven women, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I feel like she would do it. And then just a spontaneous thing now, because talking, and you gave me this, this insight. One of the things that we just started last year, we ran our first entrepreneurial and empowerment retreat for Gold Star women, which are women who lost somebody due to active duty service. These are mothers and wife or widows and fiance. Because I know the struggles that are involved. We're very lucky. There's a lot of organizations, people want to come forward and support us, give us amazing experiences. But getting back into the workforce and getting that drive to get on your feet and become independent and self-reliant and want to live again, that's an entirely different area. And that's the event that we ran. The very first one, we brought in very powerful speakers and entrepreneurs. We did self-defense and all this stuff. But I think one of the most important parts of that for them was hearing from people who had walked through that same journey. So if you were sitting or standing in front of a room full of these women who, and a lot of them were still very new in their path and their grief, what would be something? It's easy for us to sit there and look at somebody like you and say, well, she made it, but she's X, Y, and Z. She's so-and-so. She's different than me. I'm not her. I can't do what she did. What would you say to women who are faced with this and maybe thinking that they're never going to do what you did?
Certainly, first of all, right, we all think like that in the beginning, okay? Yeah. I didn't think I was going to do what I did either in the very beginning. I would tell them to embrace the grief, okay? We feel, and women, are not sexist, Dave, but we're a little more, we're very sensitive. So we have, we're sensitive. We have so many emotions, and that guys probably have, but they shield them or whatever a little bit differently, I think. So I would tell them to embrace the grief. I would tell them not to hide from it, because grieving is a part of healing, especially with the new people coming in. And I think that that's a part that they would have to do. Then after that, as time goes on, and nobody has no particular time limit, I would say to them that there's no time limit for me to tell you how long this will take. Because like you, it's 9 years, me, 13 months. 13 months wasn't the end of it, but, it was the beginning of something that I was able to change up, and do. Yes. So there's no time span, is what I would say as well. But then, as the healing, allow yourself to heal. And as the healing process continues, start thinking about what it is you want to do next. and then dive into it with no water in the pool and just don't hit the bottom. That's okay.
Thank you so much. We're planning our next event for the fall, so I thought it'd be great to ask you that and be able to put it in part of our video and and present to the women.
Cool.
Yeah,
when they're there.
Barb and I would like to thank you for being on the show and sharing your story. Super motivating, super inspirational. Hopefully, I'm sure it's going to impact a lot of the lives of our listeners. So we're really grateful to have you on.
Thank you so much. Love you guys. Love you guys a lot. Thank you for having me. This has been really fun. So,
all right. Best of luck to you.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.